Welcome back to our sessions on Bible study for beginners, and particularly under the theme, Rightly Dividing the Word. This is a series which has been promoted by the Christadelphian video service to assist people in their beginnings of Bible study. We've been dealing with concordances over the last two sessions, and as we have in our previous sessions, there will be some practical exercises for you to undertake using your own concordances and maybe using eSword. And we would encourage you that when we have those exercises, you stop the recording, do the exercises, and then resume. So just to recap, let's just go back and look at the homework from the last section. We asked you to look up the word surfeiting and lasciviousness and immutable, and to check them from eSword. And I think you will have concluded from eSword that all of these words could have been translated more clearly in our King James Version. You may have other versions that have given you much closer meanings for them. And words like lasciviousness is not something that we use in the English language anymore, nor is surfeiting. So, these are words that we can greatly improve our understanding of once we know their derivations. And eSword is really, really helpful. So I would encourage you to always have eSword on your computer and have it ready to use. Okay, let's go back to our comment about root words, because, as I said, I've heard too many speakers get up and talk about the root meaning of a word and to build a whole case upon it. Root words may give you direction. It's not the complete picture. Take an English example. The word blackberry. It's a combination of the colour black and berries, and it refers to a fruit. But you ask a modern teenager what a blackberry is, more likely they'll talk about a technical device because that's their individual context. So you can't always say that the root words are telling you exactly what we're talking about. Is it a fruit or is it a device? The word pineapple is a good case in the English of having no base relation to either pine or apples. It came into use when the English explorers came across pineapples in the tropics. They said it looked like a large pine cone, and they knew all about apples, so they called it a pineapple, which of course is completely misleading. It is not an apple, it's not a pine, it is a fruit all of its own, but that's the name that stuck with it. But going to the root words would do you absolutely no good. In the Hebrew, the words for bread and war have the same root word, but again, the way they're used and the things they are combined with and the context will tell you the correct word or the correct interpretation to use. So be really careful about saying that because a root word means thus and thus, that you can then build a whole case for something else based upon that root word. That's a very dangerous path to go down. Always remember that in the Bible there is a cultural context as well. For example, let's take the word circumcision. It can mean a literal physical operation that Jews performed upon their sons on the 8th day. It was part of the covenant that God made with Abraham. So it can be a literal operation on a human being. But when you use it as Paul uses it, he talks about the followers of strict Jewish theology and the strict Jewish practice. And so he calls them those of the circumcision. In other words, this was something that they treasured as part of their way of keeping the law of Moses. But they were known as the circumcision in relation to the Gentiles who were the uncircumcised. So again, the word has to have a cultural context around it to know exactly which meaning you intend. For those who want to go a bit deeper, here are some things to take note of. Hebrew names are often used to add to a story. When you go to the 2nd of Chronicles 20 verse 14, the king Josiah had made a very, very dramatic prayer to God as they were surrounded by overwhelming forces that were about to wipe them out. He made a very dramatic prayer to God, and the answer came through a very particular individual. And we're given 4 generations of this individual's family. And every one of those names is part of the answer. So sometimes Hebrew names are used to add to the meaning of the story. Hebrew words sometimes have gender allocation. It can be a female word or a male word, and it pays to be aware of that, as it sometimes will determine how it should be translated. When you get to the Greek words can have a past, present, or future tense applied to them. So again, many words have been mistranslated because they're in the wrong tense, and you need to sort out those tenses. These are things that more serious Bible students need to take account of. Some Bible words are quite unique as against the current use in everyday speech. For example, the word agape that you find translated as love in the New Testament is almost unique to the Bible, and therefore it's a word that we need to be very careful about in its use. You won't find a lot of references in the Greek language to the word agape or agape, as it can be pronounced. You need to be aware it's a unique word to the New Testament writers. So in these areas, this is where lexicons and deeper resources are very handy. We're not going to go into lexicons in this series, but you certainly can move on to deeper studies and more detailed studies if you wish. So here is the homework for today from our session on concordances, and you can work on these at your leisure. Look up the 3 different Greek words translated as world in the New Testament. Make a note of the best meanings for each of those 3 words, and then you colour in through the New Testament all the occurrences of the word world in 3 different colours, based upon what you have found those words to mean. Look at each context and see how it helps to see the original meaning applied, especially in Matthew 24, where you get all 3 words used for different things and yet translated with one English word, world, and completely losing the meaning of those intentions in Matthew 24. So again, look at each usage once you've coloured it in its context to see how the new meaning will help you understand. Notice how the word world can be used of both the physical world and the mind of the flesh environment around us. Jesus says the world has hated you. It doesn't mean the planet. He means the mind of the flesh, or the thinking of the flesh in people who will despise you for your beliefs. So the word world has a very general application to the planet, as well as it does to the thinking of the flesh in the world. When you trace the word world through the speeches of John, you will find it's almost used exclusively in the latter way. So there's some homework on concordances to go through. A good exercise in getting the word world coloured in through your New Testament. It'll only take you about half an hour to do it, but it will mean a power of difference in many passages when you go there with a much better understanding of the different meanings for the word world. So thank you for listening in on concordances. We will be moving on in the next section to context and then into other aspects of Bible study, and we hope you'll join us for those.